Everything that's come out recently, it's really made me reframe how I think about certain stories that I've shared on this platform, submissions that I've gotten for Spooky Scary Storytime, things like people who said that they went to weird parties in Hollywood, or one in particular that stands out is the one about the worker at Club 33 in Disney who said that he catered to a group of very, very strange people who were like worshiping a humanoid wax figure of Walt Disney. Never in a million years thought any of these stories would become relevant to like what's going on now, but I do want to share one that came from someone named Jessica, and I've held off sharing this one because it's a secondhand story that she was told by a woman in a laundromat. And she said when she first heard this story from this woman, she thought it was just the ramblings of like a crazy person. But she also says the story was so bizarre and surreal that it has haunted her ever since she heard it. I would like to offer a trigger warning on this one. I'm obviously not going to go into super gruesome detail or anything like that. It's a day that you want to protect your peace, maybe just don't listen to this one or listen to it later. Jessica said that even though the story is really bizarre and out there, she believed this woman because level of detail that this woman gave her when recounting her experience so vivid that Jessica felt like she had lived it herself. I also think this is important to share because I believe that there are victims out there who are staying quiet to protect themselves or for other reasons. Maybe by shining light on things like this, it will prevent more things like this from going on, or at least make people more aware so that they're keeping eyes on everyone. Jessica says this happened 19 years ago, and she was a very young single mother living in upstate New York, and she was working full time. She was going to school, and she had a 1-year-old who she was taking care of entirely by herself. And so sometimes the laundry would pile up, and she would just take it all to a local laundromat. But the town she lived in was very small, kind of the type of place where you saw the same people or you knew everyone. But this one night as she's at the laundromat, she sees this woman in the laundromat who she's never seen before. The woman's doing her laundry, Jessica's doing her laundry, and she's also trying to juggle her 1-year-old. So it was just like a lot for her. And this woman notices that Jessica's struggling, trying to entertain her baby and do the laundry. So she starts trying to talk to the baby, entertain him. And naturally the conversation goes to like, oh, how old is he? His name, what's he into right now? And Jessica said she could tell this woman loved kids because she was just naturally very good with her son. But this woman ends up telling her, like, I love children, but I'm never actually able to have any of my own. Jessica doesn't really know what to say, but she's like, oh, well, maybe you can have one eventually. And the woman's like, no, I've actually never been in a relationship and like I can't have them. And Jessica says, okay, well, would you ever consider adopting? Like there's a lot of kids that need homes. And this woman says, I would love to, but it makes me so sad that I'm not able to, but I don't really have any family. I don't have a support system. I've never actually really had a real home. That I've just moved constantly throughout my life. I would just never be able to provide a child with the kind of support system that it needs. And Jessica says, I'm so sorry. And then this woman starts telling her this story. The woman's story was so gripping that she stood there and they talked through the washing, the drying, and the folding. The woman says that her story started when she was a young child and she was put into the foster care system near Buffalo, New York, in a small town, but she didn't want to tell Jessica what the town's name was because she was said that she was too frightened to ever even speak the name out loud. Several families that were involved with this foster care system, but all of these families had an upwards of 10 children at the time that they were caring for. And each of these foster families were abusive in every way imaginable. And again, Jessica's like, I am so sorry that you went through that. And this woman says, yeah, and all the families knew each other and they were involved with a satanic cult. She tells Jessica that the kids that were in this foster care system range from infants to teenagers. And when Jessica was a young teen, she was forced to take part in a ritual in which she was sterilized. Leave the details out on that, but she said that it involved a hot fireplace poker. Not only that, but during these rituals, they sterilized other young girls, and then others were forced to have children, which the foster families and the foster care system would then take from them. She says that the children were forced to harm each other and that she even witnessed some of the lives being taken from some of these children. All of this was supposedly in worship for these adults, these caretakers, God, who Jessica deduced from the story that it was Satan, but the woman never said as much. So then Jessica says, well, did you ever tell a caseworker? And the woman says it didn't matter because all the caseworkers, all the authorities, every adult in power knew about it and was involved somehow. Then she lowers her voice and she says, actually, it wasn't just the people in power in my town, but it was political figures and authority figures from all levels. And that's why I'm still nervous to tell anyone this. And that's why I don't want to say the town name, because I feel like somebody is still watching me. And at this point, I guess somebody else walked into the laundromat and this woman lowers her voice and she changes her tone completely. And she just pretends like she's playing with the baby. She clearly did not want anyone else in there to hear what she was saying. And then, that person went on and did their laundry. And after Jessica left, she said she felt sick after hearing this woman's story. Obviously, there was a lot more detail, but she called her boyfriend and she was telling him, like, everything this woman had just said to her. And the boyfriend kind of says, oh, you know, it just sounds like the ramblings of a crazy person. And Jessica's like, yeah, you're probably right. But she said that it was so specific in certain parts, but also vague enough that Jessica would never be able to like piece together where this took place, that it seemed like this woman was genuinely trying to protect herself. Also just wanted someone to know. And before Jessica left, this woman also tells her, you know, like, watch your son, make sure the wrong people don't get their hands on him. Keep in mind, when this conversation happened, this was 19 years ago. So Jessica says she really didn't have any like frame of reference or anything to compare it to. And it just seemed so bizarre at the time. But she really wishes, looking back, that she had asked this woman more questions or been able to help her somehow, because she didn't even ever find out why that woman was in her small town and she never saw her again. She said she was sharing this with the hope of shining light on a subject that might be hiding in the shadows, and to hopefully bring some comfort if there are any victims out there that are hearing this, that you're not alone and that people do care.